Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Ask Me Anything session where I'm here today live with Allison, Al-Khemia, and I see that we've got a couple people joining us live. I've also got some questions that have come up too, so feel free to comment. You've got the ability to comment here on YouTube. If you have any questions or if you just want to say hi too, like we're live, so we see you, you see us. That's sort of the beauty of doing these things live. So Allison, how are you doing today?
I'm good. It's a beautiful day here in northern Colorado. We have gorgeous weather, and it's a beautiful day. And you have a very colorful and lively background, which is awesome to be witnessing right now.
This is Mexico. I am in Mexico, and I've been absorbing the wealth of the land in so many ways because it's just rich with frequency and rich with amazingness. And I have some really great friends here. So we've got lots of hellos. Hi, Conscious Queen. Hi, Heartfelt. Hi, Sven.
Hi.
Hi from Berlin. Oh, we got some late night people here. Cool. And Lori is saying hello. Hello, everybody. It is so lovely to be here. You can just type your questions in. We'll pop them up below, as you can see, and answer them. But before we do that, we do have, I just want to give a brief intro to what we're covering today. So this is your chance to ask us anything that you'd like to about this idea of quantum wealth. And this is basically creating your own definition of wealth your way. And, you know, one of the biggest things I see with people who are heart-based is their difficulty in integrating the lower centers. And this is really where the densest energies lie within our collective identity. Mm-hmm. And because of that, a lot of people have no problem getting cosmic realizations and heart embodiment. Oh, thank you all for the beautiful hellos. The Coming Home to You Network says, nice to see you all. Henriette saying hi from Cologne, Germany. Sarah Rios is saying hello. So because of that, you know, we really wanted to give you guys the opportunity to ask us questions about this, because this is an area that I have innately I've always done well. I've got Jupiter and Sagittarius and in the second house. So for me, wealth and that is just kind of comes second hand nature. But I have had a different relationship as I've grown older. And as I've grown older, I've learned to lean back more and lean back into my own way of doing things that doesn't kill me. You know, when I was younger, I used to have to grind. And everybody knows what the grind feels like, and it's not so good. And it caps you out at a certain point. Would you agree, Allison?
Absolutely. I mean, they made up an entire diagnosis called adrenal fatigue because we've just been grinding so much as a culture for so long, and destroying our nervous systems as a result. So
yeah. So before we launch into some of the questions I've received, and some of that will obviously come in on the chat here, maybe you can just take a moment in your own words to define what quantum wealth and quantum manifestation mean to you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's this whole idea that, and now it's easier to articulate for people to understand, because when I was talking about this 3, 4, 5 years ago, I would just get deer in the headlights looks like, what do you mean? What are you even talking about? But we are in the middle of this great shift of a new paradigm being birthed, to where money is operating differently. The economy is operating differently. Industries are changing so rapidly that the way that we have defined wealth up until this point, while it has great value, and we absolutely should do our due diligence and learn everything we possibly can about that realm, we're also being called to a higher and better relationship with resourcing ourselves, because of the nature of how quickly everything is changing. Yeah, I couldn't understand anything Sarah was saying. Well, now all we have to do, if you dare, which I usually don't, is tap into the news and see what has fallen apart. And we quickly realize that this is what all the astrologers of the past have been saying, like, buckle up here. Well, here we are, right?
Yeah.
The old structures are completely breaking right in front of our eyes on the daily. And people's incomes are no longer cutting it anymore. People's relationship with their money is changing. And there's just such a collective, like, fear going on, because everything is different now. Quantum wealth is the ability to tap into the frequency of wealth from inside, no matter what is going on externally. And then from there, you're literally creating and manifesting the external to come to life. I hope this is making sense.
It does make perfect sense. And I think this is one of those things that a lot of people are learning apophetically, and apophetically means by learning what it's not. Right?
Yes.
And when things don't work anymore, then it forces us to think differently. And by thinking differently, that's the start. But of course, the energy has to descend. A new idea comes down. It's the descensionary process, as the lunar channel comes down into the root of our being. The root in the sacral region, they hold such tribal collective themes in them that we're untangling right now. And that's why a lot of people are going through such deep purification in their lives. Everyone I know over the last 5 years, I haven't met a single person who hasn't had at least 3 dark nights of the soul a week.
Yeah. It's kind of been the flavor of 2025.
I'm kind of kidding here, but at the same time, like, we're still here, right? We're still rolling with it. I mean, if you're alive and on a stream like this right now, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that they don't even have the capacity to look outside. It's sort of like these forces come in and they cause people to brace so tightly, and they're just like, I'm going to keep going and get another job. I'm going to just make it through.
Right.
And Conscious Queen is actually saying, well, for her, it was 4 dark nights. Yeah, I mean, it could be more. These aren't bad things. If anything, a dark night of the soul means that you have an agreement to become something greater. And that at a fundamental level, you're holding yourself to that agreement. So buckle up for the ride and don't really attach yourself to anything that comes up and out at this time, right? You don't want to re-embed that stuff that's coming up and out or loop in it. It makes it more challenging, and it also slows down your progression into a completely new identity.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very well said. And that's something I think the manifestation community has caught on to about the whole identity thing. And it's just an interesting time now because our identities have been so attached to the external world that when we look at we've always looked external of us to identify who we are, right? Like, if you're meeting someone, what's one of the first things you ask them? What do you do? And then that becomes part of the identity, right? I'm married, I'm a wife, or I'm a husband, or I'm a mother, or I'm a daughter. We're always relating to things external of us, and that's just being human. But
I've tried to reprogram myself to ask people questions like, what's your reason for being? What do you value in life?
Beautiful.
And that if we can connect on the level of values, that's so much more potent.
Yeah, totally. And that helps us bridge this gap of like, okay, if the external is looking completely different than anything we've ever known before, and we're having this collective identity crisis, we need to be tapping deeper into these things like you're talking about, like value systems. Who am I when nobody's looking? How do I feel about my money when nobody is looking, or when everybody's looking?
Yeah.
These are the questions that are going to help us anchor into the lower chakras and the lower systems that you're talking about.
Yeah. I'm going to just share something personally about something I've observed in myself, that when I talk to other people, they nod and they go like this. Wealth generation and money, it's like a breath. It's, and so you inhale, you receive, you hold, and that's how you hold the money. And then you exhale is where you distribute it. But then there's a last phase, is what happens when you're empty? What happens when you go through a natural contractionary period? And actually right now, I'm in Mexico. I've made a lot of investments last month into pretty big things. I'm in a contractionary period right now. There's a lot of outflow the last few months. And I'm sitting here and I'm excited because instead of saying, oh my God, look at my bank balance. Oh my God, look at this. It's sort of like, no, something bigger is coming. And can you trust that? Can you actually sit in that uncomfortableness? It's the same thing with people who do breath work and they have to sit with the exhaled breath retention. It's like, how good are you at sitting? How good is your nervous system at sitting at empty? That's a question for everybody right now. How good is your nervous system at sitting at empty? Because a lot of people I know, they desperately try to get away from that. Whereas emptiness is really like winter. It sort of rids the last cycle of growth and paves the way for a new cycle of growth to emerge in the spring.
You're hitting the nail on the head. Someone that I had on my podcast once, her name is Elizabeth Ralph. She's known as a spiritual investor, and she talks about money neutrality. Those are her words. I talk about it a little bit differently, but I talk about it from like a nervous system capacity, just like what you're saying. When you are empty, how are you? Who are you? How secure are you feeling? And here's a personal share of mine, which is that, and I actually shared about this on my podcast recently, where I put myself through this really uncomfortable experiment where I took myself to Costa Rica, but I kind of went in incognito, and I went in with no plan at all on purpose. I could have easily decided where I was going to stay, all these things. I intentionally didn't bring sunscreen. I didn't bring an umbrella. I didn't bring a plant. I do crazy shit like this to just expand my skill set in the quantum field. And it was incredible how the universe just showed up minute after minute after minute after minute, where I was on a bus and I was like, okay, I have no idea where I'm staying when I get off this bus in 10 minutes in the middle of the night, in the middle of the jungle. And I just intended with the universe, okay, I need Wi-Fi within 5 minutes of stepping off this bus. And 5 minutes later, I'm in a conversation with a business owner, and we're connecting. We have mutual friends in my hometown. I mean, how much do you trust life?
That is it. When I was 24, I was in Scotland traveling. We were about to go to the Highlands, and the night before, somebody came in through the window, and it was a very small window. So realistically, I don't know how this happened. They stole my passport, wallet, jacket, everything that I needed. So I'm in a foreign country, no money, no wallet, no credit card, no phone, no passport, nothing. And I could have panicked in that moment. And I did for a good 15 minutes. And then I said, wait a minute, this happened. And like, it shouldn't have happened based on the logistics of this window size. And the guy even took a bite out of a muffin on the way out too. That was pretty funny. I'm like, but it could either be a moment of terror and panic or a free moment where you hit the stride. So everything that followed after that was very clear. It was like, go left. Okay, I'm going left. All right, here you go. Talk to this person. All right, you can't get on a plane, but you can get on a bus. Do that. Exactly. And get yourself back. And it was to the point where I went to the embassy in London 2 days before my flight back to Canada. And I was in university at the time, so I didn't have enough money to rebook a ticket. And basically they said, there's almost no way that your passport will arrive in 48 hours. And I said, I don't care. I'm going to show up here the morning of my flight, and I trust it'll be here. And they said, okay. So we put in for an emergency passport. Sure enough, I get there the morning of the flight, my bag on me with my guitar in my hand, like, running through the center of London, basically. Get the passport, perfectly line up with the train. The train shows up, takes me to the airport. There's no line at the counter. I check in, I put my bags on, and I'm sailing home, scot-free basically at that point. So this is the kind of level of trust we need to have, because let's face it, folks, there is scary stuff happening out there. And if we get caught in the fear, that is not going to be good. It's going to create a suppression field. Whereas there's also an opportunity, because, divine intelligence wants us to move into this new configuration. And so if things start blowing up in your part of the world, just remember, this is also an opportunity for a free moment.
Yeah.
And can I trust that space of emptiness? Because actually that emptiness is a good thing. We're just trained, our whole society is trained to fear death.
It's really interesting when you talk about the emptiness and like that trust point, because it is a moment of freedom, and it's actually the exact same frequency that a multimillionaire or billionaire feels when they have everything. All that they are concerned about is playing with the moment, being present in the moment, and seeing what comes and what they can respond to or what they can create. And when in this similar thing, when you're in such a state of emptiness and everything has kind of been stripped, you have your breath and your life, and that's it. And there is a sense of freedom that can only be found in that moment. And so it's really interesting to play with the dichotomies and realize that the frequencies are actually very similar.
Yeah.
And when you can detach from this whole like attachment to money, money actually follows you easier.
Yeah. And of course, what we're going to be covering in our workshop, which is happening tomorrow,
Yeah.
in the description below for anyone, is your unique sort of playfulness signature.
Yeah.
You know, and when you have that playfulness signature, that's something you can go back to. You can understand it intellectually, and then you can use it as a mental anchor point when these things come up in life. So to give you an example, my design or my personality sun is occult wisdom, gate 61, 1, and then I have preservation on the other side, on the design side. So the preservation of the human species due to higher wisdom or inner knowing. And so if I follow that current and I make sure my decisions are in alignment with what will bring more of that into the world, I can trust that I'll be invited into bigger and bigger spaces. And to the point where the leadership team that I'm on for new communities of the future is something that I literally cried after like I had a leadership meeting and I had a moment of tears. It was so beautiful that I was invited into that space because I followed my dharmic path. And everybody has this.
Yeah.
I am not special in this way. The only difference is that I've consciously made decisions to remove certain tethers in my life to these other occurrences. And that's really what we're encouraging. And that's really what the main message here is that all the BS, all the pain, all the suffering, remember that these are just lessons to help you orient yourself for who you really are. And when you get into that flow, you're going to have plenty of free moments, plenty of synchronicities, a lot of divine intelligence flowing through you. And naturally, you're going to be in a state of wealth. Period.
Yeah. It is so fun and free.
Free. Oh,
Yeah.
everyone loves freedom. Trust me, in Mexico, that's all they're selling here is the beachfront, the villa, the freedom.
Yes.
You're going to experience expansiveness and freedom, and you know everything's going to be amazing for you. And you know people pay millions of dollars. You don't need to pay millions of dollars.
Right.
Maybe you can get that if you want to, and you rightfully deserve it, but you don't need it. It's
Right.
marketing.
Yeah.
The real freedom comes from inside.
Yeah, right. I know a lot of broke millionaires, by the way. This is
right.
The level of consciousness and the mindset and the deeper embodiment issues that we're talking about with these signatures in human design. It touches everybody, all of us. So,
and so tomorrow, Allison's going to be uncovering how to look at these in a slightly different way. I really like the way she does. She did a reading for me, and it was just so simple but like on point, and there's a purity in it. And so I feel like everybody who's coming to this workshop is going to get a real treat tomorrow. But before then, and if you are registered, I know a lot of you are, I can tell by the names, amazing. It's pay what you want. So I mean there's really no reason why anyone shouldn't be there. But the point of this is that we're here to give you these techniques and tools. We're going to do it right now on this call through what we're talking about, and then also tomorrow as well. But I want to bring up a question here. And then this says, I got what you said about infusing the meaning of the gate from the I Ching book, but as the interpretation is the hardest thing, I was just wondering if she would speak about it during the workshop. We'll just speak about it now.
Yeah.
You do things very different in that you actually read directly from the I Ching.
Yeah.
And that was something that was super cool. And, we talked about that. You pulled up Alfred Huang's book. And I'm like, hey, I know Alfred Huang.
I have it right here. It's like I only have a few books on my desk always because I reference it so every day. But I really appreciate his work with I Ching deeply. And as a kung fu martial artist of a decade, it's just very near and dear to my soul in a different kind of way, I guess, because I've infused these things in my own body.
Yeah.
So tapping into this question, the interpretation, that is the rub. And my answer is very simple. It's what you decide it to be. Period.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, let's let that sink in for a moment. I know that it would be cool to like get out my didactic chart and like my laser pointer and say, well, if you look at this on the I Ching and la, 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 and this and this and this and that would be cool and fancy. But at the end of the day, because we are the creator, the interpretation is what you decide it to be. So if there's anything that is, I wish, and I hope that this person comes to the workshop tomorrow, because maybe I could ask them, is there some sort of dissonance happening between themselves and their level of self-trust?
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people can lose trust in themselves if they're experiencing pain or illness for prolonged periods of time.
Oh, for sure.
Right. And then over time that wears away at their ability to trust themselves.
Yes.
Right. Because I've tried all these things and I've got all these intuitive hits, but when there's an actual transmission in a space where you're brought back to yourself, and, you know, I do this a lot with my clients, is I bring them back to themselves. And I'm sure you do from what you're saying. Everything, you know, you just said there speaks to that same thing. That is the coming age that we're moving into. You know, if you look at the global consciousness cycles in human design, the age of across running across the planning, that is deferring your decision making to the community or the tribe, right? And that's basically working tirelessly for external organizations that quote unquote are supposed to support you. Now they're no longer supporting us, as we can tell. You know, that's why, you know, our parents' generation, you know, that's why they're still bought in, because they were operating at a time where those things did still support them. But as these things enter into their waning period, you're in the shadow of a sort of an age. It starts breaking down slowly. You know, we've been seeing the breakdown happen post World War II. Really, that's really when we've entered into the last line of, I think 1961 was the last line. So line one of the cross of planning. And basically that's signifying the end, because that's the foundation. That's sort of where the foundation is built, and the cracks will show in the foundation. And then eventually the concrete gets smashed, and then you're left in free fall. We go into line 6 of, you know, the gate 55. And what that is that's radical reliance on yourself. Jeffrey's asking, who's the author? Alfred Huang. I'll just post the banner here.
It's like this.
You can
I mean,
see
the author were, you know, they were emperors from 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 years ago.
Yeah, and if you do some research on Alfred Huang, you'll see that he's got quite the reputation for being a master. Even my teacher of 15 years, she went to stay with him in Hawaii for 3 months. Like, even though she was part of a Vedic, like a, you know, Indian lineage, she's like, I need to learn about the I Ching, and I'm going to go study with this man. So he's the real deal. And that's another thing, is when you follow me, I like the real deal. I don't like the new age fluff. I don't like the Oprah garden variety manifestation. I want to go for the good stuff. That's why I'm talking to Allison, and not, you know, whoever else that is, you know, out there that talks about this stuff on Mind Valley or something.
Oh my God.
No, we're not getting into that.
I'm not going to get into that. I would love to speak really quickly to what you said about when self-trust gets damaged by things like illness, chronic illness, or life-altering situations, because that is very, very real. I know, you know, I was bedridden for 7 years and in a very, very abusive marriage for almost 20. And was really born into abuse as well. And so like when, and that's kind of part of my dharma, was to understand all of that shadow so that I could understand how to alchemize that and rebuild the self-trust to the level to where I know now that I create every single moment. And so I just really wanted to speak to anyone who is enduring something like that, or more challenging, or maybe they're coming out of it. And I feel just intuitively, I'm feeling through the audience, and I feel like we have several people who are maybe on the tail end of some really difficult season. And I just want you to know that you are able to trust your inner guidance. It hasn't been damaged. It's actually been strengthened.
That's very important to say. And I mean, I don't share a lot about my past, but when I worked as a consultant in the corporate world, you know, I was probably about 50 pounds heavier, and I drank a lot often. not to get drunk, but it was sort of like a couple beers a night just to kind of take the edge off. But I was deeply unhappy with life. And so even though there was no external trauma, like I was quite shut down during that time. Because I couldn't see a way out until that started to fade. And then I leapt forward, around 2016, 2017, I leapt forward into all the inner knowledge and all the stuff I had learned from my, vast 15 years before that of studying spirituality and wanting to make something work. It all came forward in this beautiful arc, but it did require me to take a step into the unknown. It took about 2 or 3 years of getting into this mindset of I can actually create my own career. I can actually help people. I have the skill and the capacity, despite how things look right now. So a little bit different, obviously, than your background, but I think it's important to speak into that. We're not just talking about, I was born into a rich family and then I learned some manifestation techniques and now I got even richer. That's not
I know who you're talking about. I know that name.
Actually, I was referring to an Onion article. The Republican candidate Mitt Romney, around the time he was running, it's like, millions of Americans are deeply moved by the fact that he was born into wealth and then ascended into unimaginable riches. That was the article, and I was like,
I mean, look, more power to them, and there is a manifestation guru out there who has a similar story, and like, hey, they've done well for themselves. I'm happy for them. Great. And they probably and they helped millions of people. Amazing.
Yeah.
And it's not going to cut it. It's not going to cut it going forward. And it will help people get to a certain point. But then what?
Yeah. I mean, the people who have the real capacity for wealth, a lot of them, I'm walking around the street here and the people I see in Mexico, their hearts wide open and brimming, generously giving.
Yes.
And it's like, if those people can make that shift into their own relationship with wealth, that's the kind of world I want to live in. I want to live with those people. And I know many of you that are on the chat now, and many of you that follow me and ask these questions, you are the type of people that I want to be able to offer these opportunities to see you step out of the challenging, crunchy bits and into this blossoming of what you're here to do. Like I hear people's visions and they're all different variations of the same thing. Everybody's been basically planted with the seeds of new earth in their hearts and in their minds, and we see it, but the next challenging part is actualizing it in form, and that requires resources, and that requires being resourced, and that requires money. Money down here. This stuff, this is where it is in the body.
Is this evil?
And the minute you say that,
I'm just go,
it's
this has been so demonized. It's been so we blame everything on the moon, and the moon's like, what did I ever do to you except give you an ocean and a tide and like a womb space that has a cycle? And this money is like, what have I ever done for you except show up and support your ass in your visions?
Yeah. Here's the rub here. Most of history, and I wrote this in a newsletter recently, but most of history, we got by in the community, right? And for a long time, up until about the 17th or 18th century, communities didn't really have money, right? They had people who could create things, and so they would create gardens and food and everything, and there'd be somebody that would be engaged in commerce, and a lot of people were, by today's standards, poor, but they were very fulfilled because they had this communion and connection. And then we came into, during the age of discovery, the maritime admiralty law, where basically the Vatican said, we own the whole world unless you opt out, but we're not going to tell you we own the world, so you don't know you can opt out.
And we're not going to tell you how to opt out either.
We're not going to tell you how to opt out. So we have this legal financial construct where we own everything, and we're going to put you into a construct that everybody's going to operate in that works with money, because if we can control that and we know the rules of this game, then essentially we own you.
Now I'm excited.
So that's where the challenges with money arise from, is because now we're placed into this construct. You go to, I'm in a town right now where there's tourism. Everywhere you go, like your money could just fly out of you, like in every direction, right? But if you go with this precision of, this is what I'm here to do, this is the alignment, this is my self-concept, you know exactly where that money needs to be directed and where it's going to come in from.
Yeah, I got really lit up right there because I love owning this snake energy that I embody. I use snake venom medicinally, and snake has been part of my spiritual path since I was a child. I'm going somewhere with this. Um, we know the matrix. You just laid out very clearly exactly how the matrix was designed and what we found ourselves born into.
Mm-hmm.
We are in the time now where it's time for the more enlightened souls to own more and more of their space, to take up more space and more and more. And it's going to be this transfer of power. Now, I bring up snake because think of how a snake moves through the jungle. It's very it's stealthy, and you don't really, a snake isn't seen unless it wants to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
So we can be as spiritual as it comes, but if we forsake money and resources, we will not be able to collectively strike when the moment is right. We won't be able to. We'll be powerless. We'll be left behind, all those things. That's not a timeline that I subscribe to. I don't believe that that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
However, learning to beat them at their own game takes time. It takes intention. And it's not even, we don't have to beat them at their own game. That's not quite the right way to say it. But we are in this active building stage for this new earth, this new paradigm.
Yeah.
And we do need to have the skills and resources to be able to play the game effectively so that we can change it going forward.
So we do have a question here. Mm-hmm. Who has some direct proven data for opting out, especially this day before tax day in the US? There are people who are posed as consultants for this. Some of them are good. Some of them, are not so good. It's a process, though. It takes time. You've got to write letters. You may or may not receive letters back from things like the IRS in the US, etc. But it is a process. You want to look up the sovereignty movement. I don't do it per se. I'm going about it with a different route. I'm going about it with joining sort of a leadership team that has a trust. And then through that process, there's going to be educational material for people who want to opt out. There's pros and cons to the whole thing because it's still early. Like as a collective, we're still waking up to this. And there's people who are at the forefront of this and people who are establishing more seamless ways to integrate that in. So unfortunately, I can't give you any direct info on that. I just know of this. I've talked to some of these people who do this kind of work. It's not something that I have been called to look into extremely deeply for an individual. My alignment right now is more with the trust level, where you establish more of like a collective or organization that is essentially taken out of the public domain and placed into the private domain, which has many legal and tax benefits to it.
Yeah, and I would say too, I mean, for me personally, I've been studying and researching this for about 2 years for myself and my family. And the thing that I can speak to, there are many paths to quote unquote freedom out of the matrix. And some paths work for some and some paths work for others, and some do and some don't. So it is like you said, it's early. So trial and error is a thing. But from a wealth perspective, from a freedom perspective, I would start really looking into irrevocable trusts and you can start researching there. It does take time and dedication to educate oneself on all of these things. And
if you don't like legalese, then best to work with a skilled consultant on this.
Yes. I'm lucky enough that I know how to read the legalese. So it's very time intensive. So.
Yeah. All right. Next question we got. My astrology is how does astrological timing, of which there are many different ones in different astrological systems, affect our ability to create quantum wealth right now? Okay. So this is interesting because, as you know, in the last few years, I've switched over to sidereal astrology, and of which there are many. And tropical astrology, it's simpler in a way because it's fixed to the Earth's axis, right? With that too, though, the only issue is that you're kind of caught in this precession of the equinoxes. So it's not tied to astronomy. It's tied to an arbitrary datum, which is March 21st.
Mm-hmm.
And there's certain things with that as time progresses, you're no longer getting the actual stream directly from the planets and constellations. I work with astrology. I'm going to be going out in the desert, the dark sky desert. I'm going to be sitting there under the stars, as they appear in the sky. So that's why I switched over to sidereal, because some of the greatest experiences I had were direct communion with these alignments of planets and constellations. Now, with sidereal, you have what are called ayanamshas. So ayanamshas are basically different reference points or different datums that different sages made at different points in time. And so the one that I use is the true sidereal ayanamsha, which is moving. So it has to be recalculated. And so if you've ever followed any of my human design workshops, you have to actually calculate your SVP value in order to account for the fact that we have this regressionary effect through that's the technical part. I'm not going to get too deeply into it. But the interesting thing is with different sidereal systems is that you're almost like capturing the multidimensional energy at a different point in time when the sage created that ayanamsha. So none of them are right or wrong, but there'll be certain ones that call to you. And so I am agnostic to anybody else and what they choose to use. I've chosen to go with a astronomical basis for my astrology most of the time. I do like Fagan Bradley as well. That's another ayanamsha that I like to use. But if tropical works for you and that's what is going to give you the most insight into your life, then please go with that. If you're working with one of the many sidereal systems that calls to you, like if you say, oh, true sidereal, there's something there, then try that out. But this is really the beauty of it, is that we're not here to tell you which one's going to create quantum wealth for you, because Allison, you use tropical human design.
Do.
And the way you rock it is like, I'm like, I can't throw stones at that.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I love sidereal. I'm just not educated enough yet to be able to confidently lead people through it. But I'm educated enough in Western, and it works.
Yeah.
So, and I believe it works because of the critical mass collective belief system that supports it.
Yeah.
Because I will always come back to, and it may be too simple for some people, but like you said, the simplicity and the purity of the way that I work and move is that we are the creators. We are. So I, from a technical standpoint, I do think that the sidereal is more accurate. And also, I'm one of those people. I just want quick and fast results. I'm like, show it to me, show me now, give me the results as quickly as possible. And because of the collective, like on a mass critical scale, at least in the West, I find that the Western tropical works very, very well.
Yeah. And if you're not into the recalculations, or you don't know how to do them properly and you might mess them up, stick with the easy thing. It's so easy to get a Western human or a tropical human design chart. So start there at least. And if it doesn't give you the answers you want, you can ask me, and I can show you how. I've put out a few YouTube videos on it in the past as well. But it's a couple more steps. And it's sort of like I always like the easy, efficient way to do things. The simple, efficient way, not necessarily easy. Simple, efficient way to do things versus the intellectual, complex, requires a lot of prior knowledge approach, right? Yeah. That can happen over time, but it should arise naturally. Like, people often are like, Dave, like, how do you know all this stuff? It's because the thread that I followed got me to that point. That's right. And if that can stay as simple, as efficient in my body when I'm engaging with it, then I'll use it, right? Because sometimes I do outgrow things and I'm like, this is too simple now. I need something that actually keeps me on that edge. And so it's always about finding your edge with this. And so that's why we're saying there's no right and wrong here. And it also is probably a breath of relief for people that are like, geez, okay, cool. Like, I'm not reading the wrong one.
Yeah. And that's kind of the thing, is like, and I found this when I was way back, getting my degree in biblical studies, I would find people would sit around in these theological discussions for 7 hours in the rooms with the big leather chairs, and they would be discussing all the things. And at the end, nothing would get accomplished. And I'm not saying that's not the work that you do. That's not the work that I do. That's not relevant here. But in the industry at large, I see so much of that, where it's like, we can really run the risk of getting into the weeds and getting stuck there rather than actually looking at things from a high level and maybe a little bit of a simpler level and reconnecting with the pure, simple truth that whatever we decide is true is true.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Because
kind of
we create an identity around that.
yeah.
Right. And I mean, with what you do, I think you distill out and you alchemize a lot of the parts that maybe other people get caught up in because you go for the purity. And, you know, Allison will use tropical human design to do this. I don't judge. You know, for me, it's like whatever works, works. And, you know, I will see value. Then I get the Jovianists that show up on my YouTube channel because I have a couple of videos that are like over 10,000 views.
I love your
And
videos.
they show up there and they're just like, you are lying to people about truth material. And that is not the source material. And they're so angry.
Oh
And I'm
God.
like, wow, your journey with human design has turned you into an angry, bigoted, you know, holier than thou, howdy elitist. It's like, has it made you a better person? Do you actually enjoy life? Or are you just tight and wrapped up and go around threatening people on the internet that you don't know? And I mean, for me, that what it is usually the people who've gone so far into the intellectual side of it that they can't be wrong because it's a threat to them because they haven't actually reconciled their lives. You know, if you look at some of these like very common examples, you look at some of these Buddhist practitioners like in Thailand or, you know, and you see them and they're like children. They don't fucking care. You know, they don't care because the fruits of their practice have yielded them into the simplicity of life. It's like, well, you know, you're me, I'm you. Like, why would I get mad at you? It's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, I'm not going to say that to, you know, some of these people in society who, you know, like the media and stuff. I'm like, it's all good. Like, I mean, we are in a situation right now where, you know, there is things that are abusive that are happening in the world. And I say, I am not associating with that. I'm not taking part of that. That's important. And in the West, I think it's very different because we often as Westerners can look at these Eastern traditions and see, oh my goodness, they're so loving and they're accepting and we're all one. But they actually sometimes miss the fact that there's a manipulative force behind what was once Western society, but now is global society.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That was a tangent here. So I've got a good one. This one came in. Even if I know how to create wealth, what if in Vedic astrology I'm in my third Sarasvati, which says, unless I work with my Saturn and give to others until 60, I'm not going to experience wealth. Well, this is interesting. I'm going to take this one. Jyotish, Vedic astrology, you know, Indian astrology, whatever you want to call it. It's called Jyotish, but you know, for sake of familiarity. It is such a precise tool of timekeeping. And I've worked with very skilled and very realized Jyotish astrologers, and their readings, they literally peel back all of the layers of your soul to reveal who you are. And it's a deeply touching experience. And Indian culture and the relationship with astrology is much different than the West. In India, everybody goes to see an astrologer. And there's people most people are stuck at the consensus level. Who am I going to marry? Will I get a government? Yeah, that was what he used to joke about. It's like all the Indian people come to me for readings. They're always asking me, who will I marry? Will I get a government job? I guess a government job in India is you know, the creme de la creme. And, you know, when will I be rich? These were the three questions. Or, you know, will my children grow up and be doctors and lawyers and stuff? So very consensus level questions. And when you're operating at the consensus level of reality, you're operating with a much more fixed and fatalistic way of operating. And that's why I chose to study the gene keys and evolutionary astrology to say, hey, you know what? We can modulate the frequency in which we're experiencing life. And when we modulate the frequency we're experiencing life, we have more freedom. We're no longer at the cause and effect of the planets because the planets begin to behave differently. And I'll give you a great example of this. She's mentioning Saturn, but Saturn at the consensus level is external authority. Saturn is the man. Saturn is the system. Saturn is, you know, Trump. Saturn is, you know, whatever, you know, people label this externality as. And it's always imposing on them. And Saturn is just not fun. There's no fun in Saturn. Saturn is just like, just the slave master basically for people. And Saturn is very.
Oh no. Dave, I don't know if it's me or you, but I think we're experiencing some tech difficulties. Okay. I'm just going to keep talking, assuming that you guys can hear me. And if Dave gets back, anyway, I was starting to get some intuitive downloads on this question while David was talking about Saturn, and he's talking about it being okay. I can hear you. Dave froze. Okay. All right. I'll keep talking. Saturn. Dave was talking about, but they can hear me.
Okay.
Oh, you're back. Okay. I was just texting you, Dave. Okay.
Good. Yeah. I just had an internet blip here, but that's how it goes. So Saturn at the consensus level is this thing that imposes on us. When we can shift our frequency to the gift frequency, or in evolutionary astrology, we call it the individuated stage. Carl Jung would call it when we're individuated healthfully. Do you know what happens then? Saturn becomes inner authority. Saturn becomes our discipline, because now we are serving our heart. And Saturn is actually our friend. It says, hey, don't veer off. Don't go over there and waste yourself. It's like, do this to, support your higher desires and not your lower ones. That's what discipline is. It's like, what do you really dream of? What's part of your bigger vision? Let's support that. Let's not get the little gremlins in there. Let's not just go and eat the cake and watch the Netflix and the ice cream and all that kind of stuff. Let's actually go to bed early. Let's get up early. Let's, plan our day. Let's do that. That's what Saturn is. And then Saturn's co-creating with you. And at the highest frequency level, the transcendental, the siddhi, Saturn is natural law. And Saturn basically becomes, go here, go there, talk to this person, do that. And when you're operating out of that frequency, it's like, this is all there is. I am. And it's definitely something that many people have tasted at least once in their life, and other people live there more. And then some people have never experienced that because they're stuck in the consensus stage. So when we change our relationship with these planets, especially Saturn, and in Vedic astrology, they say if you appease your Saturn, you're going to have a good life.
Yeah. I have a moon and Jupiter in Capricorn, which is Saturn ruled, and it has served me so well, the inner self-discipline. But to this question, to her point, it really does come to her own interpretation of what her Vedic astrologer is telling her.
Yeah.
And the interpretation that you just offered is so much more empowering than this collective understanding of, oh, well, the Vedic says this, and so that's how it's going to be. Well, who says?
I did an astrocartography reading for somebody, and they're like, they're going to see me because they got very unfavorable things about a place they were intuitively called to go. So it was somewhere on mainland Mexico, and they're like, yeah, I've been called to go to Oaxaca, but in Oaxaca, the Vedic astrologer says, no. This is a place where you'll be stung by a scorpion and a bird will come and eat your eye. And this is weird kind of mythological type of thing. Never go there. It's dangerous. It's evil. It's challenge. And they're like, but I feel called to go there. And I looked into it more, and I'm like, yeah, it's an 8th house placement. There's no, 8th house is about growth and transformation no matter what. And if you understand that, and you're going in with the disposition that I am coming here to transform, I am coming here to grow, I am coming here to, change my ways and to loosen the identity and the boundaries that I think I am, everything's going to support that. Yes. If you're bracing against that and you're like, well, I'm just going to keep doing the same thing and hope that it works, yeah, you're going to run into accidents,
right,
and unfortunate circumstances.
If they're feeling called to a place, what I heard intuitively, as I'm clairaudient, it like as you were speaking about the situation, I heard, well, if the scorpion does sting them and they do get an eye plucked out by a bird, but they're called to go there, they will grow in such a way that they would never have another opportunity to do in this lifetime. If they feel called to do something in their guts, in their bones, don't doubt that. Don't doubt that. Go with it, surrender to it, trust yourself. And like you just said, don't resist. Every planet, every single planet lately has been in my 8th house, going retrograde, going direct, going retrograde, going direct. And it's like, you don't want to resist that energy.
You're still laughing.
You know, some of the behind the scenes. Yeah. You know, it's the 8th house is very effective.
It is. Yeah. The other thing I want to say here too is, you know, the word alchemy gets thrown around a lot, but it's a very, very profound process. To alchemize something is to create a metamorphosis or a transition that is irreversible. And as a result of that, if you really look at alchemy, it requires 99.9% purity.
Yeah.
And so in order for an alchemical crucible, which is your body, to actually undergo an alchemical process, what needs to happen is you need to purify out anything first. It's called the preparation. And most people in this world are a chemical factory. You know, they're not an alchemical laboratory, right? Because of the impressions that they're taking in, because of the food they're eating that isn't right for their bodies, because of the relationships that they have in their lives, they're producing a lot of fear-based chemicals and hormones.
Yeah.
And what we need to do is we say, no, I am undergoing an alchemical purification so that I am capable of having a transmutative process and experiencing the transfiguration into a higher configuration.
Yeah.
This goes for wealth 100%.
Yeah, because you cannot create wealth in a frequency of fear. And I'll just speak to part of my background as well, which is I have died. My physical body has died and come back. I died of septic shock in 2010 and came back. And it was like my own body died from the inside out of impurities. My blood was infected, right? And my uterus was infected. I had just given birth. So like, I really am the embodiment of alchemy. Yeah, we'll get to this question. It's a really good one. I am the embodiment of alchemy, and the purity is necessary. And so it's all about detaching from this fear. It's like, I say I've had the gift of having my worst nightmares come true. Because, and I can't talk about it without getting emotional. I had, like, dying wasn't my worst nightmare. Thinking about leaving my little children in this lifetime without their mother, that I didn't want to do that. And I did come back, but my son actually died in front of my eyes 12 years later.
Wow. And
he came back. This does run in my lineage. It's in my DNA. I'm a very old soul, and I know how long that I've been here, right? So I'm speaking from a very deep place, but I have the gift of having had my worst nightmares come true, because now it's like I'm so unattached to whatever ups and downs life throws at me. I feel the same if my bank account is having a dip as if I have like today I had a multi tens of thousands of dollar infusion. Like I don't feel the same today as I did yesterday, and I won't feel the same, you know, I feel the same. So I don't feel any difference. So because I have the gift of having had everything taken out because of that alchemical purification preparation, right? And so if anyone is experiencing something that feels traumatic, that is traumatic, if anyone's experiencing fear, like, go ahead and be really gentle with yourself. I know that in spiritual circles, we can really, I used to do this too. I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't mean to, but I could make people feel like wrong for being scared. And it's like, there's scary shit to be scared about. So be gentle with yourself if you're feeling scared. And also just know that it's going to be okay. That's not a platitude. It's the truth. You can trust yourself. You can trust life. Like, it's here for you. And from that place is where wealth and money and resources start to come in from all different angles. Sarah, I'm wondering if I touched enough on your question or not. What do you think, Dave?
Let Sarah respond if she wants more clarification there.
Okay.
But yes, what I see trauma as is I almost see it like a magnet or an anchor back into the experience, and it's stored on many layers of our being, right? I see it all the time when I do quantum rebalancing work with people, is that there's the neuropeptides in the nervous system, right? So the story literally is encoded in these neuropeptides. It runs the nervous system. The nervous system fires in a certain way, creating a physical feeling or sensation, right? Basically sometimes that can happen is if somebody's in a space that's very positive and supportive and has a high frequency and they've got trauma, they can get triggered in that space because their body sees it as a threat because of the story that they're telling themselves, because of the emotions. And so the trauma needs to be purified from the channels. And that is one of those things that we're seeing more and more. And Conscious Queen is speaking here. She says, I feel like my trauma is the beliefs and stories I've lived all these years and never questioned. I'm changing those now and everything is blowing up. Sunshine and happiness is on the horizon. Exactly. The movement I'm seeing more and more with business or with wealth and money is that as you, alchemize and you purify your traumas and the channels of trauma in the body, is that all of a sudden there's more space for wealth and there's more space for these things to come in. It's same thing with people who have a big mission. Often they can't get to their mission, no matter how hard they try, no matter what strategy they use, no matter who they bring on as their coach or whatever, until that trauma is cleared out, because there's always going to be something at a very fundamental level that says, I'm not ready for this. And if this is there, I'm not ready to undergo an alchemical process until the laboratory's clean.
Yes. And the more practice you become at this with your nervous system, the quicker you'll move through this. So I'm just going to very vulnerably share here. I mentioned that I was in an abusive relationship for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And just recently, I think there was something in the field that, like, I've been going through a major up level in my own business and my own life. And just recently, my ex-husband started breaking the restraining order over and over and over and over every day, multiple times a day. So I was on the phone with the police a lot. And so my body, right, it responded to that. But because of the work that I have done and the level of purity that I operate on a daily basis, I don't have to try anymore. It's just how I am now. I knew, and then my mom actually had a heart attack right in front of me last week. This all happened in the same week, right? So massively traumatic things happening outside of me that directly affected me. So what I did was after I had to react, for a few days, I got myself into my acupuncturist, and I just told her, I'm like, hey, we need to recalibrate some things and all of this. So got the acupuncture that night. My body spiked a very high fever. And I was in fever mode for about 12 hours. And then I woke up the next morning, feel amazing. It's just like this stuff can move, even the heaviest of things, right? Your mother doing that in front of you, like all these things that are really heavy and horrible. It can move through very quickly. You will get better and faster at metabolizing any kind of shock to the system. We're still human. We still feel them. But this is a very deeply physical process as well. And that's something I talk about ad nauseum in quantum manifestation. We can't talk about manifestation without talking about the physical body. This is a genetic evolution that we are undergoing.
It's so funny because the stuff that gets popularized and the stuff that gets the most number of people, it would never get to that point if it talked about the things that really drove it, right? Because you wouldn't have Oprah getting on there and going, you got to clean out, and Conscious Queen is saying here, it's gross. You got to get into the gross stuff that you're holding in yourself in order to have the secret. You're not going to hear that. You're just going to hear you put your mind on something, and then you say these affirmations, and then magically it showed up, and here's a new car, or here's a vacation, or whatever it is. And then everybody else goes and they try it and they're like, why isn't this working? Well, it's not working because that only will work for a small amount of people who are ready for it. Everybody else has to go through the process that's not marketable. It's not glamorous. It's not sexy. It's gross feeling. It is a gross feeling sometimes.
It is. And like they've given you like step one for the people who are in this very particular phase.
Mm-hmm.
And it will help to a point, but also even like shadow work has been sort of like glamorized in some circles, in some spiritual circles. And I'm just like, do they know what shadow work is? Because people would not be getting excited about doing all this shadow work if they were actually doing shadow work.
Yeah.
It is not exciting. It is not fun.
No. I mean, shadow work, the mainstream version is, kind of this Ista thing where you get in a room and you're all naked together and you do these weird sort of sex rituals and that kind of thing. And people are like, they basically get the rocks off and people's boundaries get crossed and they call it shadow work. And it's like, what? Like, when you start actually, and the thing is too, is that you don't hear the dark side of it because people are still bought into it. They're like, oh yeah, I guess that wasn't a problem. It's like, no, it is. Your body's shaking right now. You're trembling because you didn't actually do the thing you should be doing.
Right.
And, I tell you, some of the most profound sessions that I've had with clients in my quantum rebalancing work was when I held the space and we created a container and they were able to feel through the stuff that was there, and it's always been there. And there's a release, and it's loud sometimes. It's very uncomfortable for a small period of time until the thing moves out. Like if the way you need to think about it is that there's these compartments of because your body's very good at compartmentalizing things. So they'll compartmentalize them and they'll pop up every now and again, but it's that latent passive effect that they have of being unresolved. And in that unresolved thing, you can see it like a knot. There's energy there. There's a massive amount of energy. And if you take that energy and you open it up gently in the right way, that's now available for more radiance. Your auric field changes. The ability to directly and clearly data stream wisdom pours out of your mouth. So, I mean, the benefits of it is that you feel through these uncomfortable things temporarily. And temporary is a very loose term. It could be a couple minutes, or it could be a couple hours, could be a couple months, whatever. But you feel through them, and then you experience nature's abundance.
Yes.
And then you snap your fingers and you get the things you need.
Yes.
And then maybe that stops happening because you have another layer of things to deal with, but you have a process now for going through it and dealing with it.
It's so fun to see the results. And this is okay. Well, let me back up.
Sarah's saying this call was for me. So whatever we're speaking about, Allison, is touching the hearts of some of the people here. Thank you, Sarah.
Oh, so honored and happy about that. So like, I don't want people to walk away from this thinking, oh, I have to do this first, and then I have to do this, and then I have to do this. And then look, you're human. And that means, it doesn't just mean like we say, oh, we're human, we go through things. You being human, you're the most powerful force in the known universe. You can do all of this at once. You can do the shadow work if the shadow work needs to be done. You can process heavy, heavy things if they need to be processed. You can attract and create wealth at the same time. Do not let anyone ever tell you different. If you're not getting the results, you just be gentle and patient with yourself and start asking yourself in a sacred place, maybe with your journal, maybe with a trusted friend, what am I not believing that I need to be believing about myself? Where am I not trusting myself? Where do I need to be closer to my own physical body with Mother Nature? Like, start getting curious about that. I wanted to share a really hilarious, awesome manifestation story. My sister, she shares the bloodline that I do and is incredibly psychic. And so we serve one another every single day. And she told me last night, she's like, I'm sitting on my front porch. She's down in Florida. She's like, I'm sitting on my front porch. I really am craving pizza right now. I'm craving it so badly. And I'm sitting here thinking, God, I haven't had pizza in forever. I'm gluten-free and all the things, but it sounds so good. She texted me 5 minutes later because she said, she's like, I don't want to go get it though. I'm just being really lazy. 5 minutes later, her neighbor walks by and they're like, hey, neighbor. And she's like, hey. And they say, we've got an extra slice of pizza. This is so random. Would you want one? This is what I'm saying about just like, it gets to be so fun and lighthearted. And yes, it's fun when you get the, hundreds of thousands on a day or whatever, and you get to build generational wealth for your family and create the irrevocable trust that the government will never touch. So it gets to be lighthearted, and there's a brevity to this because it's the joy of life. It's just the experience of being human, and it gets to be stable, long lasting, and deeply serious and sacred for your family and community.
Wow. That is the best way to like wrap this up and just, kind of go into the home stretch with. So thank you so much for sharing that and wrapping up, because we went into some pretty vulnerable, crunchy areas, deep areas, as I've seen the comments. Now I'd just like to invite everybody, if you haven't, Allison and I are going to be putting on this incredible workshop tomorrow together. It's a pay what you want event. So it's this one here, activate your quantum manifestation blueprint with human design. And we're not going to be going into some of the stuff we talked about in the last 10 minutes or so. We're going to be talking more about the fun stuff, the deeply revealing, the revelatory, the giving yourself permission to be yourself and experience your inner truth. That's really what it is. And like I said, it's April 15th. You can check your time here. And if it's too late, we also got replays, so don't worry. It's register now and pay what you want. I love this because basically it's a chance for us to hang out and do the deeper work together. It's also an invitation into a container that we can't really just put on publicly in YouTube, because, this is a container, and it means that, we're holding a space here that is not available to the public. So you can go and you can click the link below if you haven't registered, but we highly suggest it. And really, you got nothing to lose. But this is going to be an opportunity to actually learn this technique and to use it to start to shift in this direction that Allison was just talking about, and I've been talking about the whole time. And I work with people like Allison because I really want to find the best of the best who are doing this work and offering these things, because we don't have time to waste anymore. I'm not going to, sit here and give you something that's only going to get you to here, because here isn't far enough nowadays. I'm sorry. I'm just being honest. Like I'm looking for solutions now that are going to work in 2025 and beyond. And what she's talking about will work in any time. I mean, human design is a relatively new thing, but the trusting yourself is going to be something that will carry you on for decades, carry anyone on for decades. There's really, that is one blanket thing. So come on out, join us. And if you're watching this later, like on Wednesday and the things already happened, I'm going to have a link where you can pay what you want for the replay. So it'll always be there, always be available. And this is you could say, the service part, or the karma yoga path, is making things very accessible for everybody. And this isn't about business. This is just about like literally me saying, hey, I need to share this with the world. I need to share these experiences and opportunities, because if we're creating a new earth, we need as many people as possible. And there's a lot of people who have incredible capacity, who might be stuck in a traumatic situation, who might be stuck in scarcity right now. And they're hearing this and they're resonating with this, and they go, okay, cool. That's where I need to be.
Yeah. I am like thrilled about tomorrow's workshop, because the way that you tap into my brain is so unique that I think this is going to be life-changing for everyone who attends. And I don't like, that's not hype marketing. That's my genuine feeling. Because I've only given, like, what we're going to do tomorrow, I've only given like 10 to 15 minutes of a teaser of this kind of a workshop in public before. And people are still messaging me 6 months later saying how changed they were from that 10 or 15 minutes. Wow. So this is going to be like epic in the truest sense of the word.
Yeah.
Epic.
And it's going to simplify this whole human design thing for a lot of people.
Yes, that's
you can get out of the weird like level 8 module that you're stuck in that's not really working, but you're telling yourself it's working, and just come back to the simplicity of your own experience.
yeah.
So thank you very much, folks, for watching this. If you like this, please share it with your friends. You know, I really feel like this message is so timely and so important, and it's getting into the deeper layers that don't really get talked about in this way, and talked about by people who really understand what's needed. So thank you all for coming out. Lala McKenna's asking, is it the same link for tomorrow? If you've already registered, you've already registered. It's all good. You're all good. You're going to get communications about this. I'll be sending out an email shortly for everybody. So you're all good. Cool. Sven's saying, excellent, thanks. And I will see everybody there tomorrow. So take care. We're all going to be, you know, anybody who's following this is like you're grabbing the tail of a comet right now by listening to this. And it's your invitation to just rocket into where you need to be in your own way, in your own unique genius. And thank you, Sarah. And great to see you there. Okay, take care.